Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Healing for the Soul podcast. We have a special guest with us today. Her name is Bianca Jane. She is a plant based weight loss coach, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. But she's got some stories of her own personal transformation, healing, and just getting back in alignment with who she is and getting in alignment with her purpose. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her journey doing that. So, thank you so much, Bianca, for being here. How are you doing today?
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, really good, really good. I don't think I've woken up yet, but it's 4 o'clock, so so hopefully I'm going to make sense today.
Yeah, no, we're super excited to have you here. So thank you so much for coming on. So Bianca, tell me a little bit about so you're a coach, and
Mm.
we actually met through a mutual mentor that we've had. So tell me a little bit about how you got started here, and what drove you to make the decision to step into the coaching world and personal transformation.
Oh my God. Okay, so it goes back to 2015. Essentially, it all stems back to 2015. So I was snowboarding, living my life, backpacking in New Zealand, having a fantastic time. I was drinking every day. I was like, how old was I then? Must have been about 20, 23. I don't know. Maths isn't working right now. And you know what? I was like working in hospitality. I was making a lot of money. It was fantastic. I was snowboarding every day and fantastic, quote unquote. And I was like napping for like 3 hours in the afternoon because I was so exhausted, but having this fantastic life and going in and eating all of the crappy junk food that work was to offer. And then at the end of the day, I was drinking all of the wine that was available left over from the restaurant because it was restaurant work. Anything left over, I was drinking and eating. I thought I was having a wonderful time. Anyway, went snowboarding one day and very hungover, wasn't really paying much attention. I caught an edge on my snowboard. I catapulted forward, basically scorpion rolled down the mountain, came to a stop. My friends ended up coming running up to me. They were like, "Are you okay?" And I just had this excruciating pain coming from my abdomen region. And they were like, "Hey, something's not okay." They took me off on a skidoo to the medical center, and they started pumping me full of morphine and trying to figure out what on earth is going on because there was nothing visible that had like broken or anything like that. And then they helicoptered me off to the nearest hospital. First time I'd ridden in a helicopter, I thought it was great, but then also I was high on morphine, and took me to the hospital, and they basically they diagnosed me with a completely lacerated spleen. They had to explain what a spleen was and its importance, and they said to me, just to let you know, if you do not take this emergency operation, you will die from internal bleeding. And I was like,
Wow.
well, I'm obviously going to take the operation then. And they said, well, there's a slight caveat to that. The problem is that the operation has a 50% chance of survival. And so I was like, well, I'll let you guess what one I went for anyway. So I took the operation, and it required about 3 or 4 months of recovery of doing absolutely nothing and sitting on the sofa watching Netflix. And during that time, I kind of just realized that this isn't quite this fantastic, beautiful life that I thought I was living. I promise I'm going somewhere with this, folks. So doing a lot of rehab, doing a lot of sitting on my butt, I kind of exhausted Netflix. I watched all of The New Girl from start to finish. And I started watching Netflix. I started watching some documentaries on food. And I started watching like What the Health, Sugar Pill, and stuff like that. And I started to recognize the power that food has on us and to us. And so I made the decision then and there to cut out sugar and cut out meat. So I continued to eat dairy and continued to eat fish. And that lasted for about 5 years. But I kind of continued to drink. And I was like, wow, this is having a positive impact on me, but I'm still kind of doing the things that I'm doing. So because I had this desire to understand a little bit more about nutrition, I then looked out for more courses and became became certified with HCI, Health Coach Institute. So they talked about nutrition and healthy habits, and then this whole world of healthy habits, nutrition and food and water and sunlight and nature and everything just started opening up for me, and it just kind of like fell into place. And I was like, wow, this is really, really interesting. And I think I want to go down this path. And so if it wasn't for this awful accident that happened, it wouldn't have had the subsequent actions to then lead me to coaching. I fell in love with coaching, and I absolutely love it with a passion. Like, you know, like any job can be stressful, but every time I get off the call, I just feel so happy, and it's just so very, very much fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead. Sorry.
A couple of years ago in 2020, for a few years ago now, I just kind of out of nowhere decided to go vegan. And I was just like, I'm just gonna try it. I'm just gonna see where it takes me. And basically, I just kind of like threw everything out the window. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go vegan, and that was it. That was kind of like that was that. And I just made this sudden decision because I'd learned so much about nutrition and healthy habits along the way. And so then I started to adapt my coaching. Sorry, this is just a little extra story. Started then to adapt my coaching towards the plant-based nutrition. And so so that's kind of like the long journey about how I got here.
Yeah. And that's so interesting to me, just to hear about your experience where you're I like to talk about, like, I like to compare the human experience into like certain movies that we see, because the movies can help us understand like why we have to go through what we have to go through sometimes. And you have a really wonderful example of you just kind of living life and being in this mundane routine of whatever is just convenient, whatever seems fun, whatever seems exciting. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think what I can relate with and kind of touch on from your experiences, you went from kind of almost like just a day to day. I like to call it kind of like a groundhog day, where we're just doing the same things every day. We're not really conscious about what we're doing. We're not really thinking about what we're doing. And again, ignorance can be bliss. Not realizing like the repercussions of our actions and things like that. We can live in that, like you said, it feels fantastic here, or like so we think like everything is fine, but then something catches up to us. And it typically something within our mental health breaks down, or our physical health breaks down, or we end up in a situation where we maybe have a near death experience, or similar, or like you get into a position where you can't do anything. Like you were just in a position where you have to recover, you have to sit there, and you have to go through this process. And so what's interesting to me is it seems like you went from the unconscious, mundane Groundhog Day, and then you had this experience that left you with no choice but to be alone with yourself and to kind of think more and expand more on yourself, your life, what's going on around you, and your circumstances. And it led you down these paths where these things just kind of started calling to you. And then it led you into this more purposeful, or what feels more purposeful to you, life experience. And you get to feel like what I can see when you tell your story is it's clear you go from not having much of a light necessarily, like, and then you stepping into your light. Like, and so what I would equate that to is a journey from like a false self to your most authentic self, or or a more true self. Because from my experience, personalities and the outside, like our likes, our opinions, our beliefs, all these things can change and evolve over and over again. But it's when we get to our essence, and it's just where we get to a place where we can start to kind of what you did, take more control of how you're showing up. Because when you're in that unconscious place where you were before your accident, it can be so easy to feel like life is controlling you and you're just going day by day and working, doing whatever you think you have to do. And when you have an accident like that or a wake up call like that, what it did, it's similar to me, my story. I had my own version of my wake up call, and that's exactly what it did. What it woke up was this recognition of choice. Oh, I have a choice here. I have a choice here on how I'm living my life, on how I'm showing up, on how I'm reacting to things, on how I'm behaving, on what I'm putting into my body, on how I'm treating myself, on how I'm talking to myself. And so I feel like your story paints a really good picture of that transition from unconscious to extremely conscious. And it does typically happen from a situation where you're kind of forced into that wake up call, where you're forced into, like, you don't really have another choice to do that. So I'm curious, during your kind of messy middle, that helped, that was the catalyst for you moving into that. What are some of the things, like, while you were sitting there and you couldn't really do anything, what are some of the things that were there times, like, low times, or I'm sure, right? Like, there was really some low times for you in that period. What were some things that might have helped you through
that? Mentally, do you mean?
Yeah. What was your mindset like during that period?
Oh, absolutely rubbish. I had zero awareness at that stage. It's definitely only since that happened that my awareness has started to develop. It could just be an age thing as well. It could be a combination. I definitely feel like I have woken up in since I've been about 29 to age 29 to now, which I'm 31 now. Definitely a lot has changed in the last few years. But as I was going through that, I don't think there was anything in particular apart from just get through this. Like, just get through this. And it was, I guess there was a little bit of a wake up call in the sense of something's not right here and you need to change this. But I don't think it was, to be honest with you, I don't think it was until I started coaching and then I started being plant-based that everything then started sinking into place. And it wasn't until I was feeding my body with good nutrition, good frequencies, good energy, good vibrations that things didn't really sink in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I actually can resonate with that. My first spiritual awakening was triggered by the passing of my father, but I had no idea that I was even in a spiritual awakening until about a year and a half later, when I was going through my divorce. And when I went through my divorce, I experienced for the first time doing things that I had never done before. And it was when I started doing things that I had never done before and I started paying attention, okay, I'm not going to talk to myself negatively anymore. I'm not going to allow it. So, like, when it starts to come up, because that was my thing, that was kind of, I had a extremely low self-esteem. And so when my dad died, I went through a period of numbness. And then not long after that, I had my daughter and experienced a really traumatic divorce, like, during the height of my postpartum depression. And so I was extremely suicidal. But obviously, like, I had the suicidal thoughts, but I wasn't, like, going to take my life. But, like, I just didn't want to be here anymore. And so my confidence was really low. And I didn't realize that I was in the midst of a spiritual awakening when all of this was happening, because what I understood later was all of that stuff was coming to the surface so that I could develop my awareness to it. And it was the whole purpose of all of that those hard, uncomfortable emotions and feelings coming up was so that I could go down the path of inner healing and spirituality so that I could transmute all of those negative emotions and negative thoughts into something more beautiful, into something more positive through seeking the truth of it. So I can definitely relate to not really knowing that anything is even changing or needing to change in the middle of the mess. And it's not until like until all of the shit comes to the surface. And then once it comes to the surface and you start feeling led or called to do something about it, that's when things start to change. Your frequency starts to rise, and then you are able to really see a full picture of it, because it is really hard when you're in your mess. Sometimes you don't even realize you might realize you're in a mess because you've had an accident or you've gone through a lot of trauma or whatever the case is. So you know you're in a mess, but you don't realize what that mess is actually preparing you for. And so I can resonate with that. So what are some of the things that you do to maintain, your frequencies and your mindset and your staying conscious and being able to make healthy habits or healthy choices for healthy habits now that you're kind of here? What are some things that help you stay connected and stay maintained with that?
One of them is that I do it as a job. So I'm constantly learning, constantly listening to podcasts and self-development. I think number two as well is I'm incredibly grateful and lucky to have some very mindful and very down to earth friends, some very close knit friends, and my partner, who we all bounce off each other. We very much question each other as well, and able to open up and offer that space to each other, to open up and to be mindful. But definitely a lot of journaling, a lot of visualizations, a lot of meditation, and that has really helped a lot recently, to really tap into the kind of like the internal knowledge that we all have, but we don't necessarily, we're not able to access it, or maybe we're just not open to accessing it. And again, I've got my friend to thank for opening that up to me as well. But yeah, a lot of journaling every day, in the morning for positive things to start my day, in the evening to offload, and really looking into that, not just like writing, dear diary, this has happened today. It's like, okay, so why does this bother me? Why does this anger me? Like, it's not their fault. Like, their reactions are their reactions. The way that I take that on and the way that I process that information has something to do with me. Why does that bug me? Or why did this upset me? And really asking why has really helped open up that connection to myself, and understanding myself just so much more, to be compassionate and not be annoyed at myself for wanting something, or just really opening up that conversation and dialogue with myself has been really, really, really important for me. Was that your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. And is there anything in your industry or in your niche, or just in general in your career, that kind of you like to push back on? Is there anything that you kind of want to expand more on, or anything that kind of helps you stand out in your own unique ways of what you're doing? Like, what are some things that you're passionate about that maybe you feel isn't talked about
enough? In other words, what's super, super controversial that I try and keep my lid on? Is that what you want to know?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, if there's some, I mean, I love that. That's what I love about, I think it's really healing. That's why in season 2 here on this podcast, what I want to do is I want to talk about things that are just not, talked about a lot, because I think like more people are experiencing it. And I think it's another way to really hone in on your soul tribe is speaking up to the things that you're passionate about. And kind of just allowing things to be said that maybe people aren't talking enough about, because I find that that's where the healing is. Like when we talk about our mistakes, or we talk about our struggles, or we talk about like the raw, real experiences of being on this journey. And, you know, because I think like social media can make a lot of these things seem super pretty and perfect and light and bubbly. And I love, you know, positive and light, but they're really, this is work. There's work to do here, and it can be hard. And so I'm just curious if you find that, and you know, I work a lot with trauma and manifestation. So there's a lot of BS online in my niche, and I'm just curious if there's stuff
I work
in your
in the
niche.
diet world. I hear you. I hear in the diet and weight loss world that there is a lot of BS out there. Trust me.
Oh yeah. So what are some things that maybe you feel like you have to fight against in your niche, like that people, you know, you want people to know more about, that you're passionate about, if there's anything?
That everyone has the ability to do whatever the flip they want, but they just don't believe it. I see my clients every day. Oh my God, I got a wave of emotion coming from nowhere. I see my clients every day, and they have no belief that they can do things like weight loss or the career that they want or anything like that. But I can see it, and probably everyone else can see it as well. They will, you know, I'll speak to people and speak to clients. I can't do this. I'm broken, or I just don't have this. I don't have that. But everyone has the ability to. They just don't believe in themselves. And people will think that and sometimes there are the exceptions, but most of the time it's not because they don't have the right equipment. It's not because they haven't found the right diet. It's not because they haven't, that their boss is an asshole or something like that. Oh, sorry, I hope language is okay. It's just because they don't have the belief in themselves. And
yeah, so the way that I would take that, you know, is they don't have a perspective in their mindset that shows them they can. They're not seeing it from a lens of possibility. They're seeing it through this lens of limitation and doubt, self-doubt. And so what for you, when there's something that you want to do, or if a limitation kind of comes up, and from your experience, what is it that helps you kind of push through that inner voice kind of saying, no, what if we can't do this, or this isn't going to work for us, or what steps do you kind of follow for yourself to help you work through those moments?
And it's a lot of my clients are like, oh, you probably don't get this, or oh, you don't understand, or oh, you're just so motivated. And I'm like, no, every single day I have to tell myself, come on, get out of bed, get your butt to the gym, you know, kind of thing. And every single day I am battling the internal voice, right? And I personally feel like there's probably no one on this planet that doesn't have some form of internal voice that they don't need to battle on a daily basis. And so it's a matter, I think it's a matter of understanding that a thought is a thought, and you can change your thoughts. Okay. So if you are thinking, I can't do this, then kind of just take a step back, look at the facts. Like, can you physically walk there? Could you physically do that? Yes. Okay. So what's then the limiting thought that's telling me that I can't do this? Right. And it can be as simple as, I can't go to the gym today, I'm too tired. Well, is that technically true? Theoretically, like, is it factual? Well, no, because I can walk, I have a car, I can go to the gym, or I could walk to the gym. You know, I have a body, I have slept a few hours, so I do have the energy. Like, factually, it's not true. Okay, so what are the limiting thoughts then? Like, Is it just because I'm tired? Is it because I believe that I probably need more sleep? Well, yeah. So it can work on on a very small level like that, in terms of like, how can you get over something that's standing right in your way, but also anything that's a little bit bigger, that's stopping me. Maybe I'm worried about reaching out to someone online, right? Maybe I was slightly worried about reaching out to you. What if you wouldn't want me in front of your audience? What if my audience didn't connect with a holistic healer? And all of those things. So it can work on a very small level, but on a big level. And either way, you've just got to step back and look at the facts. Like, look at the facts. What is realistic? What is then the thought that's blocking you? And if it's a thought, you can change your thought. So just adopt a new one. It's easy theoretically, just adopt a new one. Anyone listening to this or watching this and saying, oh, how can I just adopt a new one? But if you know that a thought can be changed, and a thought is not a fact, then start giving the new thoughts more time. Start giving the positive thoughts more time. So if it's okay, well, I'm going to feel awesome once I go to the gym. Like, as soon as I get there, and like I literally envision myself, like, when I really don't want to get out of bed, I envision myself on don't ask me why, but on the leg press, like smashing out 120 kgs. And I'm like, yeah, because I just feel like the strongest when I'm on the leg press too. I think most people do when they're on the leg press. They just feel really strong. So then I think about that moment, right? And then take it to the other example. And I think about, hey, well, what if I could, maybe help one person or inspire one person to make a change, or even help one person not hit rock bottom or not get to a life or death scenario before they make that step and that change. And it's just about changing your thoughts and changing the direction of those to create a much better outcome or result.
Yeah, I love that. And, speaking on like being able to change your thoughts and change your experience, from my experience, that's 100% true for me too. Sometimes it definitely takes time. I remember when I went from, having a very negative inner dialogue, a very harsh inner critic, because I would just allow myself to kind of be down on myself. It was like a habit, just a habit to beat myself up. And so when I started becoming consciously aware of that, and like you're saying, like, it's just a thought, it's not fact, I started questioning it. Is it really true that I'm stupid or I'm a problem? And I started, just saying, is this really the truth? And what happened was, this little part of me was like, no, it's not true. And I focused on that little part that I could find that was doubting these negative things. And even if I couldn't go from one extreme to another, which I don't recommend anyways, from going from saying something like I'm stupid to I'm smart or I'm intelligent, I learned what helped me the most was going from, that inner dialogue saying something like, oh my gosh, why am I so stupid, to saying, no, I'm not stupid. I'm learning. And that's great. And so it's not like you're going, at least for me, like what I recommend for like my students and stuff, to not go from one extreme to another, because if you start saying, no, I'm really intelligent, but you were just calling yourself stupid, then that can be a little bit more damaging than anything. Just from what I've experienced, because then it feels like we're lying to ourselves, right? And that can be so confusing. So we got to find the truth. And the truth isn't always the prettier version. It's just the truth. You're not stupid. You're learning. You're learning something new. This is your first time here, right? Like we can get, I know for me, like I have so much pressure to get it right the first time and to just know things. I remember being young, so young, and I would hear a new word and I would say, oh, I've never heard that word before. What does that mean? And I remember my elders being like, what are you? Are you retarded? Are you stupid? And I'm like 6 years old, dude. Like, I don't know this word. Why are you so surprised? And so I grew up with this, like, you should know it already. You should know it already. And so when I didn't know it already, that was this narrative in my mind. I'm just stupid. I'm just broke. Like, there's something wrong with me. And it was that awareness of those thoughts, and then taking a moment to say, okay, well, is that true? No. What is the truth? I'm learning. I'm new here, right? Yep. I'm still, no matter what age I am, I'm the first time being this age, right? And so getting to that truth, not necessarily lying to yourself, because that's you don't need to do that. And so I love what you're saying there, and about changing your thoughts, being able to kind of create a new perspective so that you can have a new experience and hopefully get to a point one day over time where you take a new action. And because that was my experience. It took a good 3 months, if I remember correctly, for me to really notice big benefits to correcting myself. When I corrected myself, and I would do it every day for like 3 months. And it was after around that 90-day period when I started to notice those negative thoughts wouldn't even come up anymore. Those negative things that were telling me that I couldn't do it or there was something wrong, it just wasn't happening. And if it was very rare and I could switch it on a dime, but it took practice, and I think that that's another thing that maybe people don't understand is, okay, well, Bianca told me I should change my thoughts, or I can change my thoughts. So they try it one day, but then the next day the negative thought comes back. It didn't work for me. And so I wanted to add on to that. Like, it takes time, like I said, it took me a good 90-day period for me to actually really be able to change the content in my mind, and for me to actually experience a new experience of believing in myself and feeling good about myself and feeling more in love with myself and kind to myself. It really did. It just took that time of consistently challenging myself to change the voice and what it was saying. Yeah. And I wasn't trying to lie to the voice, right? I was just saying, hey, is it really true what you're saying about me? And then we got to the truth. And the truth was more empowering. So that was better, and that created a new experience. So I'm curious, what you think about being able to align, like, we might have these goals. For me, like, it's so funny to me, like, what I love to bring my clients through or my students through is we'll set these goals in the beginning, and along the way, we figure out what the real goals are. Because those goals in the beginning are always like surface level. They're just like what they think that the society is wanting for them, or what they think that they need to do to fit in or to get it right or to be successful or whatever it is. And then we dig into those things. And then what I find from my experience, and I'm curious to know if this is something that resonates for you or if it's something that you've seen, is the closer we get to a self-acceptance and a connection to self, the easier it becomes for whatever goal that somebody is wanting to experience or achieve to even be worked towards. Like, I know for me, when I am feeling more connected to myself or more kind to myself, and I'm being my own best friend, and I'm connected onto that level, it seems like no matter what goal I set, it's coming natural to fulfill. Do you feel like there's a connection in being able to push yourself out of your comfort zone and take actions you've never taken before? And do you see a connection for your clients in that journey as well?
I think that anything like material goals, anything like, oh, well, I want weight loss, like you said, it's not necessarily about the weight. Someone might say, okay, I need to lose weight because of this, and this health condition, but it's not necessarily because they've been diagnosed with a health condition or that they're about to get a diagnosis of that health condition. There's something that's underlying that. And I think being connected with yourself is opening yourself up to allowing the feelings and sensations of having achieved that goal before the actual goal has been achieved. I don't know if that makes sense. So I'll give you an example. I part of my journaling, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the business coach that we share. She said, okay, what are your goals? And I wrote on there like 10K a month, and I want this and this. And it was very materialistic. And I actually got really annoyed with myself. I was like, why do I want materialistic things? Like, why is this money? Why is this car? Like, why is the wardrobe? Why is that important to me? Like, why was it the first thing that came out? And I don't know why, but it just really upset me. So then I took that knowledge and to my diary and my journal, and I started figuring it out. And ultimately I kind of, it took a while to ask those questions to myself and understand underneath what was underneath it. And then I kind of started to recognize that it was more of like, I wanted to feel proud of myself, because when I was proud of myself, it meant that I was successful. And if I was successful, it meant that I had money. And so if I just become more connected to myself, then I can achieve the feelings and sensations of having achieved my goal without actually achieving the goal. And I personally feel like that's the ultimate place to get to. No amount of money is going to make you happy. We know that. We know that money doesn't buy us happiness. There's literally the most famous quote out there for it, right? We know that money doesn't give us happiness. We know that the weight loss doesn't give us happiness. I have seen clients drop all of the weight, but still hate themselves. Now they don't like their skin. Now they still don't love themselves. Their goal now no longer matters, but because they still don't have that connection with themselves and that deeper level of understanding themselves, or even that love, their goal is just void now. It doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah, and like you were saying, with the weight loss and the money and these external goals, like fixing the relationship, fixing the health, like the physical health, fixing the career, fixing the financial problems, all of these things, without that foundation of connection to self, you're right, they're just these empty things and you don't even notice it. I remember, I worked really hard. I was very overweight when I was 18 years old. I was 275 pounds, and I lost 120 pounds in a year. But I was so young, I was only 19. This was way before my healing career had begun. So I, experienced exactly what you're talking about. I was the smallest I'd ever been, and I still hated myself. I was like, this is still, I've got loose skin. This is a problem. I'm still, when I'm next to this girl, I still feel inferior, or whatever, like the case was. It was just so deep, and it was about myself. And it never, and then the other thing with the money too, it's like, we can make money. And I know for me, and I've heard this before, and I never really understood it until it happened to me. But, whenever I've had the most amount of money that I've ever had, I actually think I was less happy, because I was so stressed about keeping and maintaining that amount of money. And it's like, it tends, when you're not connected to yourself and you're connecting to these goals or these external things, you're always in a state of suffering, or at least from my experience, because you're always worried about it being better or not losing whatever you've gotten. And instead of just being able to naturally enjoy it. But then from my experience, when we finally connect back into ourselves, we can stop working so hard to try to convince ourselves to get to where we need to go for the weight loss, for the money, for this. And we can start stepping into more of an alignment with allowing things to come to you and stay with you. And I'm sure you might be able to attest to it, because you've got a habit of doing these things and pushing yourself and changing your narratives inside. You probably noticed that after a while, you start to just kind of crave to be that way. And it just becomes more natural for you to show up this way versus the old Bianca.
Oh my goodness. So, yeah. Even as a perfect example is, I started habitualizing, writing down the things that I'm manifesting and my positive I am statement. So, I know you mentioned just a minute ago about, not going the complete opposite direction with your beliefs in yourself, right? And so I call them bridging thoughts. So my the next thought up to the complete opposite to me, I write those out every day. They're kind of paired with my manifestations. And I was writing that and writing about how I would feel having got the things that I wanted. So yes, while, we all want to be a millionaire and I want to own this and live in this, I write those out, but ultimately I start writing in detail about how it makes me feel and what is important about that to me. And I was doing that a few days, for a few weeks, consistently every morning. And then over the last few days, before today, last week, a few things cropped up, and that just completely blew that out of the water. And so I was just craving writing that down. So as soon as I got my pen to paper this morning, I just felt so much happier.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's my experience too. Once I started connecting back into myself and pushing myself to change the narratives that I had about who I was and who I needed to be and where I needed to go, that's when everything started like, oh, I want to show up for this. It wasn't like nobody needed to convince me to show up. No one needed to convince me to write it down. And so, that's why my passion, I think I always start with the self. And I love I love that we all can have like our own unique areas of expertise. And I think that our niches work really well together. Anything that's empowering you to take control of your health, whether it's emotional and mental, like more so what I would focus on, and getting back to that self, or if it's with like Bianca, connecting back into the body and what's going in the gut, because all of it's connected. Because your path is kind of like my secondary, and I feel like my path is kind of like your secondary. So it's kind of cool, like that we have these parallels, and that we can touch on these points where they overlap each other, because I think they're all connected, and I think they all serve a greater purpose for the healing of the collective, just so that we can all have a healthier planet, have healthier bodies, have healthier minds, treat each other better, awaken our own personal lights again, because that's what happened for me. And I can tell just by your story and the way that you show up today, like it awakened a light for you too. And that's always my favorite part in my clients, is whenever they get to have that same experience from within them, and then it ripples. And I think that's what's so important about what we do. I know maybe you can relate to this. I know that it can be so easy, especially because social media is so noisy and it feels so over congested with so much information. And I know me being like the monk like that I am, I'm like, all the people that are meant for me can just come to me, because there's no way I can find them in this pool. And so that was like my main manifestation when it came to coaching, is I'm just going to show up, and what's meant for me is coming to me, and I don't need to even worry about the rest. And
I love that.
I know, again, whenever I am focusing on the external goal and the numbers and all these other things, I'm in a state of stress, and it just feels like I'm not connected with the whole reason that I got into this. Whenever I start focusing on these numbers and these technical things and the material things of it, it's like, it's such an easy way to get lost from your purpose. And I think that's a big thing, I think, in many careers. I think so many people go into their careers, no matter what it is, with these intentions to serve and these passions to help others and to make a better world and a better life for the people around us. And then we get in there and it becomes all about money, and it becomes all about doing better and scaling and success and getting higher and breaking ceilings and all of these things. And I know for me, like when I get caught up in those narratives, I lose complete track of me just trying to do better for myself and other people, like, and so I know that that's what's happened to a lot of people, not just in like coaching, but more so like, it happens to doctors, it happens to law enforcement, to government officials. I feel like they go in and they're like, I'm going to make a good change. And then it becomes all about money and politics and status. And I've been there, in this as an adult and with a career. I get it. I get how easy it can be to get sucked into all of those things. And so that's a big practice for me, that I have to kind of step out of. I'm not doing this for the dollar, Heather. We're not chasing the dollar. But whenever you're in like a catch-22 because everything costs money, right? So you've got to live, but you want to do your passion and all these other things. So
Right.
there's a lot that goes into even being able to do this work for yourself, but then to support others doing it too. So I definitely commend you for being able to show up and put your all into it and maintain your own well-being, your own mindset, and your own connection to what you're wanting to experience. So I'm super thankful and happy that you were able to come on to our show today and share your story, because I think it's important. I think there's a lot of healing in telling our stories, because I think what it can do is it can help shift a perspective when somebody is stuck in something that they want to get out of or something that they're very attached to, and it gives them an opportunity to come from a new angle. And I think we shared some pretty cool stuff today, so I really appreciate you coming out. Is there any final words, or just any key pieces that you want to just leave us with before we go?
Yeah. Don't let your life get to rock bottom, or the point where you're basically facing a life or death situation, right? And I know that's easy to come from someone who's experienced that life or death situation that was very close to anyway. If there's something that you want to go for, go freaking get it. Go get them. You've got one freaking life, right? And sorry about the swearing. You've got one life. Like, go get it. You don't waste time on people that are saying that you can't do anything, right? Because you can. Anything can be achieved, right? The 4-minute mile, they thought it was impossible until it was run. So if people are saying you can't do this, don't let life hit rock bottom for you to turn around and say, okay, maybe I can make this change, or maybe I could do this. If you've got a fire inside you, or something that you want to change, or something that you feel like isn't sustainable and you don't kind of want it in your life. So for me, that was like alcohol. I wasn't proud of going out and getting drunk all the time. And I knew that wasn't a sustainable way, but it took me that accident to say, okay, no, this cannot be my life anymore. But yeah, don't wait until you hit that rock bottom or life or death to change something, especially if it's your health, especially if it's your ultimate happiness. Everyone deserves better.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, that is all the time we have for today. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with somebody that you think might benefit. Make sure that you're subscribed on your favorite platform, following us so that you get your notifications for new episodes that come out. We try to make sure episodes come out weekly. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. You got some value from it. And with all of that being said, we're going to wrap up, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for joining us.